The Winnipeg Jets recently lost 11 games in a row, and the Anaheim Ducks are currently on a 9-game losing streak. Let's go through the top 10 most brutal losing streaks of all time, combining both the lengths of the streak and the context behind it. At number 10 is the 14-game losing streak of the 23-24 Coyotes. The Coyotes were actually doing pretty well and were in the playoff hunt, but significant talk about ownership and the team potentially moving picked up right around the time the losing streak started. So I wouldn't be surprised if all the off-ice noise made the players distracted. Although the 74-75 Capitals' 17-game losing streak is tied for the third longest of all time, they were an expansion team in the mid-70s when the expansion draft wasn't nearly as fair. But these Capitals are widely regarded as the worst team of all time. But the worst team of the modern era might be the 23-24 Sharks. They had multiple double-digit losing streaks that season, but their more brutal one was the 11-game losing streak to start the season. They got outscored 55-12, which is basically like losing 5-1 11 straight games. And they became the first team since the 65-66 Bruins to allow 10 goals in back-to-back games. I also specifically showed the 2 wins after, because losing to these Sharks was so embarrassing that it caused the Oilers to change their coaching staff. In the early 2010s, the Maple Leafs were notorious for getting off to hot starts and then blowing it later in the season. That was the case in 14-15, where they were in the playoff hunt, and then lost 11 in a row, marking the last year of the Phil Kessel era in Toronto. On paper, the 2021 Sabres had a much better team than what their record showed. But the combination of some key injuries and playing only divisional games in the toughest division that year, the Sabres tied the record for the longest losing streak of all time at 18 games. But in my opinion, their 14-game losing streak in 14-15 was even worse, because they managed to lose all 14 games in regulation, which is the longest regulation game losing streak since the 92-93 season. The Anaheim Ducks finished first in the Pacific Division basically every year in the mid-2010s. They were looking good again in the 18-19 season until they completely collapsed with a 12-game losing streak. The Ducks were expected to still be a playoff team that year, but they completely fell apart and haven't been back to the playoffs since. The other team tied for the longest losing streak of all time at 18 games is the 03-04 Penguins. But what makes this losing streak worse than the Sabres' losing streak is that ties existed at this time, so they couldn't even manage to end the streak with a tie. In that same season, the Kings were in a playoff spot as the 8th seed in the West on March 14th. But they finished the season on an 11-game losing streak to completely fall down. Finally, we have a 3-for-1 at number 1, because here we have 3 large losing streaks by the same team in the same season. The 92-93 Sharks set an NHL record for the most losses in a single season. They first lost 13 games in a row towards the end of 1992, but their New Year's resolution must have been to tank even harder, as they went on to lose 17 in a row from early January to mid-February. And less than a month after snapping that losing streak, they went on another 13-game losing streak, combining for what I think are the most brutal losing streaks of all time. The crazy thing is they didn't even finish last in the league that season. Here's the review of the list, and as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments.